How does a man survive when waking up was never part of the plan? I was confined to a bed, unable to move or speak, when I heard my daughter-in-law calmly say the door should be left open so it would look natural. I don't know when I came to, but waking up was the one variable she never accounted for. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The ceiling above me blurred in and out of focus. My body felt heavy, like I'd been buried under wet sand. I tried to lift my hand, but nothing happened. My fingers wouldn't respond. My tongue sat thick and useless in my mouth. I could hear, though. That was the terrifying part. Footsteps in the hallway, soft, deliberate. Then her voice, low and controlled. "Leave it open," Iris said. "It needs to look natural." Another voice, male, uncertain. "Are you sure about this?" "He's not waking up," she replied. "The doctor said his vitals are unstable. It's only a matter of time." The footsteps came closer. I tried to scream, to move, to do anything. My body betrayed me completely. "What if someone asks questions?" the man said. "They won't. He's been declining for weeks. Everyone knows that." I recognized the man's voice now. Owen, my tenant, my friend. "Iris, this feels wrong." "Wrong?" Her laugh was cold. "What's wrong is him holding on to everything when he should have let go months ago. The business, the properties, all of it. He's been selfish." My heart pounded, but I couldn't feel my chest move. Was I even breathing? "I don't know," Owen said. "You don't have to know. Just go home. I'll handle this." The footsteps retreated. Iris remained. I could smell her perfume, something floral and expensive. She moved to the side of the bed. "You should have signed everything over when I asked nicely," she whispered. "Now look at you." She adjusted something near my head. A pillow, maybe. I felt pressure, then nothing. Darkness swallowed me whole. When consciousness flickered again, I had no sense of time. Minutes? Hours? The paralysis held me prisoner in my own body. I could hear the house settling around me, the distant hum of traffic outside, the ticking of the hallway clock. Each sound was magnified in the darkness behind my eyelids. I focused on breathing, on the tiny movements I could still control. A finger twitched. Then another. It wasn't much, but it was something. Somewhere in the house, a door closed. Then silence. I drifted again, consciousness slipping away like water through fingers. Bright lights, beeping machines, the antiseptic smell of a hospital. I was alive. My eyes cracked open slowly. Everything hurt, but in a distant way, like the pain belonged to someone else. A nurse appeared above me, her face registering shock. "Mr. Brasken, can you hear me?" I tried to nod. My head moved slightly. "Don't try to talk yet. You're in the ICU. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days. The words hit me like ice water. "We weren't sure you'd wake up," she continued. "Your daughter-in-law has been here every day, waiting." Of course she had. Waiting for me to fade away quietly. The nurse left to get the doctor. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing despite my body's weakness. 3 days. Iris had 3 days to believe she'd won. 3 days to plan what came next. 3 days to play the grieving widow to my grieving father. My throat felt like sandpaper. My muscles ached with a deep, persistent pain that suggested prolonged immobility. But I was awake. I was thinking. And I remembered everything. The door opened again. A different nurse entered, younger, with kind eyes. "Mr. Brasken, I'm going to check your vitals. Just relax." She moved around the bed with practiced efficiency, noting readings on machines I couldn't see. Her expression remained neutral, professional. "The doctor will be here soon," she said. "You gave everyone quite a scare." "Water," I managed to croak. She brought a cup with a straw, helping me take small sips. The cool liquid felt like salvation. Not too much at first. Your system needs to adjust. I nodded, grateful for even this small relief. Dr. Evan Holt entered the room 20 minutes later. He was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes and a careful manner. He reviewed the chart at the foot of my bed before approaching. "Mr. Brasken, I'm glad to see you conscious. Your collapse was sudden and severe. We've been monitoring you closely." "What happened?" My voice came out as a rasp. "We're still determining that. Your vitals showed signs of toxicity, but the levels were unusual. We've run extensive tests." Toxicity. The word hung in the air between us. "Your daughter-in-law mentioned you'd been taking several medications. Can you confirm what you were prescribed?" I thought back. Medication for my pressure levels. That was it. 1 pill, once a day. The same prescription I'd had for 5 years. Nothing else. "Just one," I managed. "For my pressure." Dr. Holt's expression shifted slightly. Something flickered in his eyes, a recognition of something wrong. She provided us with a list of 5 medications, all prescribed, she said, by various specialists. 5. I'd been taking pills Iris brought me, trusting her when she said the doctor had called in new prescriptions. Trusting her because she was family, because she was all I had left of my son. "I need that list," I said. "Of course, I'll have it brought to you. In the meantime, we're keeping you for observation. Your levels are stabilizing, but we need to understand what caused this." After he left, I lay there processing everything. My son had been gone for 8 months, a car accident, sudden and brutal. He'd been driving home from work when a truck ran a red light, gone in an instant, leaving behind a wife and a father and a hole that nothing could fill. Iris had inherited nothing because everything was in my name. The business I'd built from scratch 30 years ago, the properties I'd accumulated through careful investment and hard work. She'd tried the legal route first, claiming I'd promised to transfer assets. When that failed, she'd tried persuasion, tears, guilt, reminders of how much my son had loved her. When persuasion failed, she'd moved to something darker. I'd noticed myself getting weaker over the past 6 weeks. Dizzy spells, confusion, moments where I couldn't remember simple things. I'd attributed it to grief, to age, to the natural decline of a 53-year-old man who'd lost his only child. But it wasn't natural. It was manufactured. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Iris stepped in, her face arranged in perfect concern. She wore a dark dress, conservative and appropriate. Her makeup was subtle, highlighting the tears that seemed always ready to fall. "Lennon, thank God, I was so worried." She approached the bed, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "Don't." Her smile faltered. "What's wrong? You're confused. The doctor said you might be disoriented." "Get out." "You don't mean that. You're not yourself." I remember everything. The mask slipped for just a second. I saw it in her eyes. Calculation. Fear. Then it was back, the concerned daughter-in-law worried about her confused father-in-law. "You're upset," she said carefully. "Let me get the nurse." I said get out. She left without another word. I knew she'd be back, playing the worried family member. But now I was awake, and that changed everything. The rest of the day passed in a blur of tests and questions. Nurses came and went. Dr. Holt returned twice, each time with more questions about my medical history. I answered as thoroughly as my exhaustion allowed. Evening came. Through the window, I could see the sky darkening. Another day survived. Another day Iris hadn't counted on. I slept fitfully, waking often to the sounds of the hospital around me. Each time I verified I could still move, still think, still fight. The pharmacy records arrived the next morning, delivered by a hospital administrator who seemed uncomfortable with the implications. Dr. Holt sat beside my bed, his expression grave as he reviewed the documents. 3 of the medications on the list were never prescribed by any doctor in our system, he said quietly. The other 2 were prescribed, but the dosages don't match what was actually filled at the pharmacy. I looked at the papers he handed me. Each medication had been carefully selected. None were unusual or suspicious on their own. Circulation regulators, anti-anxiety medication, sleep aids, supplements that could interact badly with my existing pressure prescription. Taken individually, each would seem harmless, even helpful for a grieving man struggling with loss. Combined, they created a cascade effect, slow deterioration masked as natural decline, confusion that could be attributed to depression, weakness that seemed like giving up. How long was I taking these? I asked, though I already knew. Based on the prescription dates she provided, approximately 6 weeks. 6 weeks of systematic poisoning. 6 weeks of Iris visiting daily, bringing pills, watching me weaken. 6 weeks of her playing the dutiful daughter-in-law while slowly removing the obstacle between her and my assets. What would have happened if I hadn't woken up? Dr. Holt met my eyes. Another day or two at those levels. The damage might have been irreversible. You were very lucky, Mr. Brasken. Lucky. The word felt insufficient for waking up at the exact moment I'd overheard her plan. I need to make some calls, I said. Dr. Holt nodded slowly. I've documented everything. As a medical professional, I'm required to report suspected poisoning to the authorities. Not yet. I need to handle this differently. He hesitated. Mr. Brasken, if someone deliberately harmed you, I know what the law says, but I need evidence that will hold up. Right now, it's her word against mine. She'll claim I was confused, that I asked her to pick up medications, that she was trying to help. And the medications that were never prescribed? She'll say I must have gotten them myself, that my confusion led me to buy things I didn't need. Without proof of intent, without documentation of what she actually gave me versus what she claimed, we have a weak case. He didn't like it, but he understood. Years of dealing with family dynamics in medical settings had taught him the complexity of these situations. What do you need? Time and discretion. Keep the investigation medical for now. Document everything, but don't file a police report yet. I can give you a few days. After that, I have legal obligations. A few days is all I need. Over the next 48 hours, I made careful plans for my hospital bed. My first call was to Marla Kincaid, my estate lawyer. We'd worked together for 15 years, since I'd first started accumulating significant assets. She arrived within 2 hours, efficient and sharp as ever. Marla was 58, with silver hair she wore in a practical cut and eyes that missed nothing. Lennon, you look terrible. I've had a rough week. She pulled out her tablet, already in work mode. Your message said it was urgent. What do you need? A complete review of my assets. Everything. I want to know exactly what Iris tried to claim and where things stand legally. This is about your daughter-in-law? It's about protecting what I built. Marla's expression shifted to something harder. Tell me everything. I did. The whole story, from my son's passing to the medications to waking up in this bed. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on her tablet. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is attempted harm, she said finally. You need to go to the police. I will. But first, I need to know exactly what she was after. I need to understand the full scope of her plan. Marla nodded. Give me 24 hours. I'll pull everything. She worked fast. By the next evening, she had a comprehensive report that she reviewed with me point by point. Your estate is airtight, she began. Your son's passing didn't change anything regarding ownership. Iris has no legal claim to any of your properties or business assets. She knew that, which is why she tried to pressure you into voluntary transfers. What did she try exactly? She contacted me 3 months ago, claiming you'd verbally promised to sign over the downtown apartment building. She had no documentation, no witnesses. I told her that without written authorization from you, I couldn't process anything. She never mentioned that conversation to me. I'm not surprised. 2 weeks later, she tried again, this time with a document she claimed you'd signed. It was clearly forged. The signature didn't match your established signature pattern. What did you do? I informed her that presenting forged documents is a crime, and that any further attempts would result in me reporting her to the authorities. She backed off, at least from the legal angle. And when that didn't work, she escalated to something more direct. I absorbed this. 3 months of legal maneuvering before she'd resorted to poisoning. She'd tried every legitimate avenue first. When those failed, she'd gotten desperate. I need everything documented, I said. Ownership records, business incorporation papers, rental agreements, the forged document she presented. Everything that proves what's mine and everything that shows her attempts to take it. Planning something? Protecting myself and making sure she can't hurt anyone else? Marla spent the rest of the evening pulling documents. By the time she left, I had a complete picture of my assets and Iris's failed attempts to claim them. The next call was harder. Owen Hale answered on the third ring, his voice wary. Mr. Brasken? We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. You were in my house 3 days before I collapsed, I remember. Silence on the other end of the line. Owen, I'm not angry, but I need to know what she told you. I can't get involved in this. You're already involved. You were there. You heard her. More silence, then quietly. She said you wanted it that way. Wanted what? To be left alone, to let nature take its course. She said you were in pain, that you wanted to be with your son. The manipulation was layered, sophisticated. She'd framed it as mercy, as honoring my wishes. And Owen, who'd known me for years, had chosen to believe her. Did I ever say those things to you? I asked. No, but did I ever seem like someone who'd given up? A long pause. No. Then why did you believe her? She was convincing. She showed me papers, medical documents. She said you'd signed a DNR, that you didn't want extraordinary measures. I never signed anything like that. I know that now. Owen, I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. Come to the hospital. Tell me everything she said, everything you saw. He came that evening, looking haunted. What he told me filled in the gaps I'd been missing. Iris had been planning this for months, slowly constructing a narrative of my decline. She told the neighbors I was becoming forgetful, leaving the stove on, missing appointments. She told my business partner I was thinking about stepping away, hinting at early cognitive issues. She told Owen I was deeply depressed, emotionally unstable. She'd created a comprehensive story where my sudden incapacitation would seem inevitable, even expected. Where questions would be minimal because everyone had already been primed to expect my decline. She's smart, Owen said miserably. I didn't realize how smart until now. What did she promise you? He looked at the floor. The apartment. She said when you were gone, she'd honor your verbal promise to sell it to me below market value. She said you'd wanted me to have it because I'd been such a good tenant. I never made that promise. I know. I'm sorry. I should have questioned it. I should have talked to you directly. Yes, you should have. But she's good at manipulation. She found your weakness and exploited it. What are you going to do? Fix this, and you're going to help me. I left the hospital 6 days after waking up, weaker but focused. The doctors wanted me to stay longer, but I'd recovered enough to continue treatment as an outpatient. Besides, I had work to do. Iris had visited twice more during my hospital stay, each time playing the concerned relative. I'd kept my responses minimal, watching her perform. She was good. If I hadn't overheard her in my bedroom, if I hadn't woken up when I did, I might still believe her act. My first stop after discharge was the bank. I'd called ahead, requesting a meeting with the branch manager. She was expecting me. Mr. Brasken, it's good to see you. I heard you were unwell. I'm recovering. I need to make some changes to my accounts. Over the next hour, I restructured everything. All rental income was diverted to a new account Iris couldn't access. My primary checking account was frozen, except for my signature. Every automatic payment was reviewed and verified. Is there a problem we should be aware of? The manager asked carefully. Just taking precautions. I've realized my account security wasn't as tight as it should be. She nodded, understanding more than I was saying. Banks dealt with financial elder abuse often enough to recognize the signs. Next was my business partner, Gerald Fletcher. We'd built the commercial property management company together 20 years ago. He'd been semi-retired for the past 5 years, leaving day-to-day operations to me, but he still owned 40%. Lennon, you look rough. I've been better. We sat in his office, surrounded by photos of projects we'd completed over the years, buildings we'd renovated, properties we'd developed, a career's worth of work. I need to clarify something, I said. Did Iris contact you recently? Gerald's expression became guarded. About a month ago. She said you were thinking about retirement, possibly selling your shares. What did you tell her? That any decision like that would require direct conversation with you and proper documentation. She seemed disappointed. I'm not retiring, I'm not selling. Any communication suggesting otherwise didn't come from me. He leaned back in his chair. I had a feeling. You're not the type to make decisions like that through an intermediary. If she contacts you again, document everything. I may need it. Legal trouble? Preventing future trouble. He didn't press for details, which I appreciated. Gerald had always respected boundaries. That evening, I met with Marla again. She'd been building the legal firewall while I handled the financial aspects. Property deeds are reinforced, she reported. I've filed updated documentation with the county recorder's office. Business ownership is documented in triplicate, copies filed with the state. Every asset is locked down with multiple layers of verification required for any transfers. What about power of attorney? Revoked. I've filed paperwork specifying that any previous POA assignments are void. You'd need to create new ones, which would require witnesses and notarization. Good. She can't claim I verbally authorized anything. She'll notice eventually that her access is cut off. Let her notice. By then, it won't matter. The next step was harder. I drove to the financial crimes unit of the police department. Detective Paulson was expecting me. Dr. Holt had finally filed his mandatory report, and Paulson had been assigned the case. He was in his mid-40s, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much human greed. His office was small, cluttered with case files and half-empty coffee cups. Mr. Brasken, have a seat. I sat, suddenly aware of how exhausted I was. The past week had drained me more than I wanted to admit. Dr. Holt's report is concerning, Paulson began. You're saying your daughter-in-law deliberately gave you medications that nearly ended your life? I'm saying someone gave me medications I wasn't prescribed, and I nearly expired as a result. The evidence suggests it was deliberate. Suggesting and proving are different things. I know. That's why I'm here. I need you to investigate this properly. Build a case that will hold up. He opened a file on his desk. I've reviewed the medical records. The pharmaceutical evidence is solid. 3 medications that were never prescribed, 2 that were given in wrong dosages. That's clear. But proving who gave them to you, proving intent, that's harder. Your daughter-in-law could claim you were confused, that you got these medications yourself. She brought them to me. She told me my doctors had prescribed them. Do you have proof of that? Witnesses? Documentation? I thought about Owen, about the neighbors who'd seen Iris visiting daily. Circumstantial evidence, testimony from my tenant who heard her discussing my decline. That helps, but it's not enough for a strong prosecution. These cases are difficult. Family members have legitimate access, reasonable explanations. Juries sympathize with caregivers. What do you need? He leaned forward. More than just the medical evidence. I need financial motive, pattern of behavior, preferably some admission of intent. I can provide financial motive. My lawyer has documentation of her attempts to claim my assets. That's good. What about pattern of behavior? She's been telling people I'm declining for months, setting up the narrative that my collapse would seem natural. Who can testify to that? I gave him names: Owen, neighbors, Gerald, the bank manager. This is complicated, Paulson said. Family cases always are, but if you're serious about pursuing this, we can investigate. I'm serious. What's your endgame here, Mr. Brasken? Justice, the legal kind. I want her prosecuted for what she did. He nodded slowly. Okay, I'll open an official investigation. It'll take time to build the case properly. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. These things can't be rushed. I understand. At home, I changed the locks. Iris still had a key to my house, a courtesy I'd extended after my son passed. I'd wanted her to feel welcome, to know she always had access to family. That courtesy was over. I also installed a security system. Cameras at the front and back doors, motion sensors, the works. If she tried to enter, I'd have documentation. She showed up 2 days later, furious. I watched her on the security camera, trying her key, finding it didn't work. She rang the doorbell repeatedly. I opened the door but left the chain engaged. Why can't I get in? Because this is my house. Your house? I've been taking care of you for months. I have a right to be here. You have no rights here. This is my property. You're being paranoid. The hospital said you might have cognitive issues after what happened. My cognition is fine. My bank accounts are fine. My properties are fine. My business is fine. Everything is exactly where it should be. Her expression shifted from anger to something colder. You're making a mistake, Lennon. No. I made a mistake trusting you. I won't make it again. You can't do this. I'm family. You stopped being family when you decided to harm me. I never harmed you. I took care of you. Then you won't mind explaining that to Detective Paulson when he contacts you. Her face went pale. Detective? There's an investigation. Into the medications, into everything. I suggest you get a lawyer. She stood there, speechless for the first time since I'd known her. Then she turned and walked away. I watched her drive off, feeling nothing but relief. 3 weeks passed. Iris tried calling repeatedly, but I never answered. She tried visiting, but the security system alerted me each time, and I simply didn't open the door. She sent emails that started conciliatory and gradually became threatening. Her lawyer finally contacted Marla, requesting a meeting to discuss the misunderstandings. Marla shut that down immediately. There's nothing to discuss, she told me after the call. They're fishing, trying to see what we know. Let them fish, Detective Paulson called with updates every few days. They'd interviewed the pharmacies where the medications had been filled. The prescriptions had been called in using my name and insurance information, but the phone numbers didn't match any of my actual doctors. We're tracing the calls, he said. They came from burner phones, but we can still establish a pattern. What kind of pattern? All the calls were made within a 3-block radius of your daughter-in-law's residence, all during times when she wasn't at work or visiting you. It was circumstantial, but it was building. Meanwhile, I focused on the business. Gerald and I had a major project starting, the renovation of a historic building downtown. It felt good to immerse myself in work, to think about something other than Iris and her schemes. But she wasn't done trying. She contacted Gerald directly, claiming I was unstable and making poor business decisions. She suggested he should consider buying out my shares for my own protection. Gerald called me immediately. She's really reaching now. What did you tell her? That I'd consider any buyout offer you made directly, but I wouldn't discuss your competence with her. Then I documented the conversation and sent it to your lawyer. Thank you. Marla called a few days later with news. The apartment lease Owen signed? It's month to month. You can terminate it with 30 days' notice. Do it. That's harsh. He cooperated with the investigation. He also stood by while Iris poisoned me. He suspected something was wrong and did nothing. Fair enough. I'll send the notice. Owen called me later that day, his voice desperate. Mr. Brasken, please. I need that apartment. I can't afford market rate anywhere else. You should have thought about that before you chose to believe her over me. I'm sorry. I've told the police everything. I'm testifying if this goes to trial. Good. But that doesn't change the fact that I can't trust you anymore. Please. Give me a chance to make this right. You had your chance. You made your choice. I hung up, feeling no satisfaction. Owen had been a good tenant for years, a friend even, but he'd failed the only test that mattered. Detective Paulson requested another meeting. I drove to the station, curious about the development. We've completed the pharmacy investigation, he said. We have proof that someone using your information fraudulently obtained those prescriptions. Can you prove it was Iris? We're getting there. We've also interviewed your neighbors. 3 of them confirm that Mrs. Brasken told them you were declining, that you were becoming forgetful and depressed. When did she tell them this? Starting about 4 months ago, well before you actually started showing any symptoms. She was setting up the narrative. Exactly, establishing that your eventual collapse would seem predictable rather than suspicious. What else do you need? Financial motive. I need to show not just that she wanted your assets, but that she was desperate enough to resort to this. What would constitute desperation? Debt, financial pressure, evidence that she needed the money urgently. I thought about that. Iris had always seemed financially comfortable, but I'd never looked deeply into her situation. Can you get her financial records? With a warrant, yes, but I need probable cause for that. You have medical evidence of poisoning, pharmaceutical fraud, and witness testimony of her setting up a false narrative. Isn't that enough? It might be. Let me talk to the prosecutor. The warrant came through a week later. What it revealed surprised me. Iris was drowning in debt, credit cards maxed out, personal loans. She'd even taken out a second mortgage on the small condo she owned. Total debt exceeded $200,000. How did I not know this? I asked Marla when she showed me the report. She hid it well, kept up appearances, but she was sinking fast. My son never mentioned anything. He probably didn't know either. People can hide financial problems until it's too late. The debt explained everything. The timing of her escalation, the desperation behind her actions. She wasn't just greedy. She was drowning and saw my assets as her only lifeline. Detective Paulson called with the final piece. We found the burner phones. She'd thrown them in a dumpster behind her work, but we recovered them from the landfill. The call records match exactly with the fraudulent prescriptions. So you have her? We have enough to charge her. The prosecutor is reviewing everything now. How long? Days, not weeks. I felt something release in my chest. It was almost over. Marla suggested a final move. Request a family meeting. Frame it as an estate discussion. Tell her you're finally ready to talk about transfers. Why would I do that? Because she won't be able to resist. She thinks she's beaten the worst of it, that without direct proof you can't touch her. Bring everyone together. Make her face what she's done with witnesses present. Who would come? Me, Dr. Holt, Detective Paulson, Owen, if he's willing to show up. We lay everything out, give her a chance to come clean before the charges are filed. It was risky, but it made sense. I sent the invitation through Marla, keeping it formal and vague. Estate planning meeting to discuss asset distribution and future arrangements. Iris responded within an hour. I'll be there. Of course she would. She thought she was finally getting what she wanted. The meeting was set for the following Friday at my home. I spent the week preparing. Medical records were organized in chronological order. Financial documents were copied and tabbed. Pharmacy records, witness statements, everything laid out clearly. Marla helped me arrange the living room. Documents on the coffee table. Chairs positioned so everyone could see. Everything in its place. Are you sure about this? She asked the night before. Completely. It's going to get ugly. It already is ugly. I'm just bringing it into the light. I spent that night thinking about my son, what he would think of all this. Would he understand? Would he be angry that I was destroying the woman he'd loved? But then I remembered that he'd loved me too, and if he knew what she'd done, what she'd tried to do, he'd want justice. I had to believe that. Friday arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that promised rain. I was up early, reviewing everything one final time. The evidence was overwhelming when you saw it all together. Circumstantial pieces that individually seemed innocent, but collectively painted a damning picture. Dr. Holt arrived first, punctual and professional. He carried his own file of medical documentation. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Ready." This is unusual, you know. Most people would just let the police handle everything. Most people didn't wake up while someone was planning their demise. I need to see her face when she realizes I know everything. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Detective Paulson came next, his presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. He wore plain clothes, but something about him screamed law enforcement. "The charges will be filed Monday morning," he said quietly, "regardless of what happens here today." I know, this isn't about changing that. Then what is it about? Closure, truth, making sure she knows she didn't get away with it. Marla arrived with Owen, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. His face was pale, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "Thank you for coming," I said to him. "I owe you that much." We arranged ourselves in the living room. I sat in my usual chair, Marla beside me with her files, Dr. Holt and Detective Paulson on the couch, Owen in the corner, almost trying to disappear. Iris was 15 minutes late. When she finally arrived, she walked in smiling, confident. She wore a navy dress, professional and appropriate. Her hair was perfect, her makeup subtle. She looked like someone attending a business meeting, not a confrontation. Then she saw the others and stopped. "What is this?" "Sit down, Iris." "I thought this was a private meeting." "It is. Everyone here is directly involved in what we're discussing." She remained standing, her hand still on the doorknob. "I'm not comfortable with this." "Then leave. But if you want to hear about the estate transfers, you'll sit." For a moment, I thought she might actually go. Her eyes darted between the faces in the room, calculating, assessing. Then greed won. She closed the door and sat in the chair farthest from me. "This is highly unusual," she said, trying to regain control of the situation. "So is poisoning your father-in-law," I replied calmly. The room went silent. Iris's smile didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes. "Excuse me?" I began slowly, laying out everything chronologically. The months after my son's passing, her initial requests for access to assets, the conversations with Marla about transferring properties. "Then you tried forgery," I continued. "A document claiming I'd signed over the apartment building. Marla caught it immediately." Iris's jaw tightened. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Then the medications started," I said, ignoring her denial. Dr. Holt spoke up, his voice clinical and precise. "Ms. Brasken, you provided the hospital with a list of medications you claimed your father-in-law was taking. 3 of those medications were never prescribed by any physician. The other 2 were prescribed, but in dosages different from what he was actually taking." "That's impossible. I was helping him manage his medications. If there was a mistake—" "It wasn't a mistake," Dr. Holt interrupted. "The combination of medications you were giving him created a systematic toxic effect. Another 48 hours and the damage would have been irreversible. I didn't give him anything he didn't ask for." Detective Paulson leaned forward. "The prescriptions were called in from burner phones purchased with cash. We recovered those phones. The calls were made from locations near your residence." "That doesn't prove anything." Combined with the financial evidence, it paints a clear picture. Paulson opened his folder. You're carrying over $200,000 in debt. Maxed credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage you can't afford. You were desperate. Iris stood abruptly. This is insane. I took care of him. I visited every day, made sure he had food, managed his medications, cleaned his house. You visited every day to monitor whether the poison was working, I said quietly. That's a vicious lie. I picked up the timeline Marla had prepared. 4 months ago, you started telling neighbors I was declining, forgetful, depressed. 3 months ago, you tried legal means to access my assets. 6 weeks ago, the medication started. 3 days before I collapsed, Owen heard you discussing how to make it look natural. Owen flinched, but didn't deny it. Iris spun to face him. Tell them how confused he was, how he barely knew what day it was. Owen looked at the floor. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. I was wrong to believe you. Mr. Brasken never showed signs of confusion when I spoke with him directly. Only in the stories you told. She turned back to me, her composure cracking. You can't prove any of this. It's all circumstantial. You're a bitter old man who can't accept that his daughter-in-law wanted what your son should have inherited. My son would have inherited everything, I said, when the time came naturally, but you couldn't wait. You needed the money now. I loved your son. Maybe you did, but you love money more. Marla pushed a stack of documents across the coffee table. These are the pharmacy records, the call logs from the burner phones, your financial statements showing the debt, witness testimonies from neighbors, business associates, and Owen, medical analysis showing the toxic combination of medications. It's all here. Iris stared at the documents, but didn't touch them. Monday morning, Detective Paulson said, you'll be formally charged with attempted harm through systematic poisoning, pharmaceutical fraud, and forgery. The evidence is overwhelming. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. She grabbed her purse, her hand shaking. You can leave, Paulson said calmly, but that doesn't change anything. The warrant will be served regardless. She moved toward the door, then stopped. For a moment, her shoulders sagged. When she turned back, the mask was gone. No more perfect composure, just rage. You should have signed everything over when I asked nicely. There it was, the admission we'd all been waiting for. Your son is gone, she continued, her voice rising. You're sitting on assets worth millions while I'm drowning in debt he left me with. My son didn't leave you in debt. You did that yourself. He promised me we'd be taken care of. He said his father would make sure I was provided for. And I would have, if you'd been patient, if you'd been honest, but you chose this path. Tears appeared in her eyes now, but they seemed more from frustration than genuine emotion. I needed that money. The creditors were threatening legal action. I was going to lose everything. So you decided to take mine? It should have been mine anyway. Your son worked in that business. He helped build it. He worked there for 3 years. I built it over 30. Those aren't the same thing. He was your son, and you were his wife. Neither of those things entitle you to what I earned. She wiped her eyes, smearing her careful makeup. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices. I could have just let you go, she said quietly. That night when you collapsed, I could have made sure you never woke up, but I didn't. That should count for something. The room went absolutely silent. Owen made a small sound of horror. Detective Paulson's expression didn't change, but I saw him make a note. You're admitting you considered it? I asked. She realized her mistake too late. I didn't mean... I was speaking hypothetically. You just admitted to considering a serious crime in front of a detective, Marla said flatly. Iris looked around the room, finally understanding how completely she'd destroyed herself. She'd come here expecting to negotiate. Instead, she'd confessed. "I want a lawyer," she said. "Good idea." Paulson stood. "The charges will be filed Monday as scheduled. I recommend you retain counsel before then." She left without another word, the door closing quietly behind her. The room remained silent for a long moment. "Did that just happen?" Owen finally asked. "She couldn't help herself," Marla said. "Narcissists rarely can. They need to justify their actions, to make everyone understand why they had no choice." Dr. Holt shook his head. "I've seen a lot in my career, but that was extraordinary." Detective Paulson gathered his notes. "This makes the case significantly stronger. She essentially confessed to premeditation and considered escalation. The prosecutor will be pleased." After everyone left, I sat alone in the quiet house. The confrontation was over. The truth was exposed. Justice would follow its course.